Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio.
Hello and welcome to the Evening Standard Rugby Podcast. I'm Steve Cording. Lawrence is not here this week. He's away on his Rugby Works Cycle Slam and we'll be finding out later on how he is getting on. However, I am joined in studio by the Evening Standard Rugby correspondent Nick Purewal. Nick, lovely to see you in person. How are you?
Thanks very much, Steve. I'm very well. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. Later, we're going to be hearing from Red Roses captain Marlie Packer ahead of the game between England and Ireland in the Women's Six Nations at Twickenham this weekend. But first, we are joined in the VoxPod studio by a Harlequins player who's, during his 13 years at the club, played 238 games, won 2 Premiership titles, been capped twice by England. He played in Saturday's amazing 42-41 win over Bordeaux in the Investec Champions Cup quarter-final. And actually, at this point, I feel like standing up and applauding. It's Will Collier. Will, thank you for coming in. Are you still on cloud 9?
Just about, yeah. Thank you very much for having me. No, I still am on cloud 9. It's right up with one of the biggest wins in my time at Quins, probably in my career full stop. So, yeah, slowly coming down off it, onto the next one.
How was the dressing room afterwards? It must have been a lot of celebrating. Did you actually get a chance to enjoy the experience?
Yeah, there was. I actually got a bit emotional after the final whistle because, you know, when Luca was lining up that kick, in my heart of hearts, I thought we've kind of blown it here. And when their crowd gets on top again, and I didn't think it was going to go away right at the end. So when it did, the emotions got the better of me a bit. But it was actually a bit of a smash and grab our end. We had to leave after the game. We flew straight back. So we had a good time on the plane, though. I think the pilot has a bit to say about that.
And post-match celebration since you've been back or not?
Yeah, I think some of the boys were at the ship last night, but I've been going steady, getting ready for sail, you know.
You are.
Professional. Yeah.
One question I was going to ask you, actually, is we see a lot of social videos of teams celebrating with their songs. Northampton have their shoes, don't they? And Saracens have got the old ticky-tangle. What do Quins do? Do they do anything or not?
We've had a few things over the years, but I don't like when things are forced like that, when it becomes a bit artificial. And, you know, under some of the other coaches, they've tried to implement a certain song and... one of the coaches, I won't say who, actually tried to change the lyrics to "Quins are on fire, your defence is terrified" or something. Which I can't really imagine the boys next door, the opposite team, hearing that and just cringing. So I think as a result of that, we've done nothing really since. You just have a couple of beers. Yeah, boys have got over 50 caps. We have a nice little tankard that we have our beer in afterwards at home.
Oh, nice.
But that's about as far as it goes.
The other thing I've seen today is that there are some suggestions that you should stand for Prime Minister. Are you seen that on social? Have you seen that on socials today?
I saw, yeah. Mark Lambert very kindly tweeted that. I think he's definitely more suited than I am. He's a bit more articulate probably, but more well educated. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't got my life after rugby plans fully sorted yet, so we'll see.
Yeah.
So take us inside that. The post-match celebrations and the plane ride back, the stuff you can sort of talk about. What's that like to be? Because I'm sure, obviously, you're kind of shattered, but full of adrenaline anyway, and it's a great chance to kind of have relax a little bit. What's it like when you know you've pulled off a massive win like that?
Yeah, I mean, boys all react differently to big wins. Me personally, I go slightly pensive, and I think in my old age, I used to go wild and celebrate, but. I just kind of, soak it all in and look around the changing room and have a beer. It was nice. We had, obviously, Ben Tapawai, he was an old Quinn, and Charlie Matthews were there, so I was catching up with them after the game. But, some boys were going wild. We spent a good debrief in the changing room, but, I mean, it took about 4 hours to stop sweating. I was slightly worried, and I had a couple of beers and thought, I'll probably chuck a Powerade here, because I'm definitely low on salts. But, yeah, it was just that. Kind of, we have a guy at the club called Andy Sanger who does a lot of player welfare stuff, and he talks about this slightly cliche knowing nod thing. You don't say too much. You kind of just have that look in your eye when you know you've done something special. And there's quite a bit of that after the game. A lot of boys just collapsed in their chairs, sweating, just kind of looking across, having a beer and nodding at each other. Knowing that we've shared in something really tough and come through it together.
So it's the first time that Quins have been in the Champions Cup semi-final. I'll say that again. First time in the Champions Cup semi-final. Make you smile. You started the game, unbelievably, as massive underdogs. Bordeaux were 7-1 on to win. Did that help in your motivation, knowing that everybody, basically, even including us last week, had written you off?
Yeah, massively. I think for most teams and environments, they say they thrive when they're underdogs, but Quins in particular. because when the shackles are off, we've got no pressure, there's no stress. With the personnel we've got and the way we play, it's just the perfect combination. And I'm sure we'll be going into the next European game as big underdogs as well. So don't want to kind of jinx anything or try and make Toulouse switch it, but it's a real weapon for us. And all week in the preparation, knowing you've got nothing to lose, knowing you can shock them very quickly, the opposition, and especially against French crowds like that, if you can shift the momentum quite quickly, it can work hugely in your favour. So it's something we react well to as a team.
I always say, for people if you've never put your head in the front row, you kind of can't know. Can you?
Why would you want to?
Well,
well, I mean that's what I love. I like trying to open the lid slightly on it, but that you talk about the pack, and it was the pack's kind of challenge to win that battle up front, and it really was a pack collective thing that we did together. And I was talking about that first scrum penalty, Finn popped Tamafuna and drilled him back, but the nuance around that is if Jack Walker hadn't kind of adjusted his left bind slightly to let Tamafuna pop up and then keep Finn down low, and then we all drive them back together, it might not be in the same picture. We could have stood up together as a front row and it would have been parity. It's these tiny, small details, which obviously it's incredibly hard to spot as a fan or anyone else, that make a massive difference in the game.
Totally. I mean, it's fascinating as well that, the scrum has come under so much spotlight, hasn't it? Particularly this season, with attempts by World Rugby to potentially speed up the game. There's talk of them changing the rules so that you obviously couldn't have another reset scrum if you give away a free kick. Do you think changes should be made to the scrum as it is? Can you see why people want it? Saturday was a perfect game. You had perfect scrummaging, you had perfect attack. But there are games that we've all been to where the scrum's been awful, it's taken so long, so many resets.
Yeah.
What changes would you make?
Wholeheartedly, I don't think fundamental changes need to take place. I saw Flats speak perfectly about this, as he always does with scrums. We can speed up the process, especially when it's a reset or there's a collapse and we're trying to go again. I think there's a responsibility as players and as the ref to, right, come on lads, let's get this going, reset quickly. I don't know how to implement that. Is there a stop clock, or do you get the timer out or something, or just hurry up? It's similar to when they have those long kicks and you're trying to do an exit. We've got to rush up that process. But I think, having said that, within that process, when the game stops for a scrum, there's so much more we can do around educating people about the scrum and enjoying it and building it up. And on the weekends, when you're playing in France, when they love scrums out there, and some other big partisan countries do, they celebrate a scrum like they do a try. They go mad for it. It's incredible. It's the most amazing feeling. And then vice versa,
Ben Hill style.
Yeah, exactly. But vice versa, if they get drilled, it's the same kind of thing. All the oxygen gets sucked out of them.
Yeah,
and they don't know what to do. But I think in that lull, when there's a scrum and everyone's thinking, what do we talk about? What do we do? It's incredibly hard for commentators or pundits who don't understand that area to have a proper say. But I think there's more you can do. You can kill fans with stats. Let's get a load of stats out. This is how much the different packs are weighing. This is how they're scrummaging at this stage of the season. These are the penalties they're giving away. Not just that. I think I've got so many thoughts on this. I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but there's very few people who know about scrums properly, and obviously the ones that do are scrum coaches, and they're going to hate this because I know front row love operating in the shadows. But I think we've got to bring them into the game, and as front rows, we have a responsibility to open the lid on what actually goes on in the scrum. Yeah. So maybe, how you interview coaches and stuff as the game's going on, there's a scrum penalty, the scrum's taking a while, get the scrum coach in, get them to talk about what they've planned that week, what's going on the next week, how the season's been going, what they've targeted, do a bit of analysis. I think that would be hugely educational for all fans, and get people more engaged in what's going on in the scrum. There's a lot more we can do.
So we have got Premiership action back this weekend. You've got a trip to Sale on Sunday, and then the following week we've got the big summer kickoff, Quins against Saints. What's your best memory from a big summer kickoff, and why?
We've only had a couple. It's quite a new thing. Mine personally is quite a personal thing. Last season, after the match, we lost. It was Bath, wasn't it? We played Bath, and it's very simple. My boys came on the pitch afterwards, and I'd been injured for quite a bit that season. And I missed out on a lot of the season, and that was one of my first 2 or 3 games back, and started and went pretty well. Scrum went well, so that was all that mattered. And I got to take the kids on afterwards, and the whole atmosphere. It's something we do very well, that kind of party atmosphere.
How old are they?
I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Oof.
So yeah, they were young.
Yeah.
They were young back then, but they were charging around the pitch and, just kind of sit down and let them watch them go. And it's really, really special. But that's, we're really lucky to have a club that's able to put on these big occasions, and, it's a family club, so the family get involved.
With the games you host at Twickenham, obviously the fans get right into the spirit of it. The crowds are amazing, and it's totally different atmosphere, isn't it? Certainly very different from an England game at Twickenham. One thing I noticed sometimes when you had Faithless, it felt like the warm up was extended, and I think that you were warming up while Faithless were performing almost, and you could almost see it really energised you as a group, and I think that almost helped in the you had a great fast start. You won that game pretty comprehensively, didn't you? Does that sort of thing? It seemed like quite smart to harness the what's the elements of what's around you. Almost.
Yeah, massively. I mean, in terms of energy, it gave us a huge amount of energy, and it's quite surreal. Obviously, you're warming up and you can see there's a concert going on just a couple of meters away. It was quite tricky because you couldn't hear a thing. So it's quite. I think we missed a few of our warm up drills, which was quite good for us. So actually, the strength and conditioners are shouting, saying, "Get over there, get over there. We've got to hit the pads or whatever." What's that, mate? And we just had to swerve it, but it was the energy it gives you is incredible. And obviously, Jess Glynn coming up, hopefully we get a similar kind of thing. But the whole atmosphere and the occasion mentioned the walk over from the stoop. I was talking about the when you walk into these big French stadiums and you have that big partisan crowd. We're fortunate we get a similar kind of thing. We all go to the stoop beforehand, and the first time I experienced it was in 2012 when we won the Premiership. And we weren't really expecting it, but it's kind of 4 or 5 fans deep the whole way across. You're over there, 316 over the bridge, and everyone's going mad. Everyone's screaming. You see the family in the crowd, and it's the most amazing experience having that kind of guard of honour going the whole way across, into Twickenham, walking through. It kind of sets the tone for the whole day and the whole atmosphere for the fans and the players.
One more thing, 2 England caps, which obviously is 2 more than Nick and I have both won, but is that the one thing that you think you'll look back on your career and go, I wish there'd been a few more, or are you comfortable with that now?
It's funny, I think so. It was my one thing, was I always wanted to play more for England and make a big impact for England. And I've made peace with that. I kind of got those 2 caps. I think I performed well when I was out there. I've always loved being in the environment, and it's so easy to second guess why didn't it happen. What was it? Was it me as a person? Did I do something wrong in training? Was it something I did when I was playing? You're trying to overthink all these things, because I never really got clarity on why it didn't happen. And I'm not going to lie, it's something I would have loved to have done more of. 100%. You grow up watching these England players, and especially I think because I think I could have had an impact in that squad. We'll never know. So
no.
But I think I could have had a real impact in the squad, and I'd have loved to have done that for English rugby. I had quite a short opportunity, which is tough, but I do slightly sway between, or I've made peace with it. I'm happy with where I'm at. I know personally I feel like I've done all I can in terms of the rugby side of things. Which is quite nice to be able to feel that as a player. I don't think it's necessarily down to my performance. It might just be the style of player and not fitting into that environment at the right time. And it could come down to timing. It could be something as simple as that. But I wouldn't say it's a regret, because it's not something I can control. But it's certainly something. It's maybe a wish or a want. It would have been nice to do. Just to show the kids, it wasn't just 2 in Argentina.
I think it's interesting that for the longest time there was England's communication was quite bad, and there was probably 2 generations of players who it was fine for those that were playing all the time, but those that were never entirely sure why or what they needed to do differently. And I think from anecdotally what players and coaches are saying, that's very different under Steve Borthwick, and I think that's to their great credit. He seems to be very clear on not just reasons why players are potentially not being selected at a specific point, but what they can do to get back. And Burnell's a great first example of that. He was told very clearly, do specific things, and he carried them all out, and then look what's happened. And it won't work for everyone at all, but I think there was a long period of time where players felt they were being selected or brought into England squads, and then England was saying, what you do is great, but we want you to do effectively the opposite.
I 100% had that exact thing when I've been in the environment, and you've changed your game to try and suit this style to fit into this jigsaw a bit more. So I lost a load of weight. I was really mobile. I was running a quick Bronco. My work rate was through the roof, but I jeopardised the super strengths and what makes me good as a player. And yeah, I could run a quick Bronco, the fitness test, and I was getting better meters, but I wasn't dominating scrums and doing what I know I can do best. Credit to Steve, in the few conversations I've had with him, he did say that to me, just kind of scrum and defence and everything else can come, which I feel I did and didn't progress for whatever reason, but at least there was clarity on that.
Yeah.
You're not jeopardising yourself as a player and trying to be someone you're not.
Well, Will, it's been an absolute pleasure. Now we know you only live down the road. We'll definitely,
Anytime, yeah.
We'll definitely be getting you back in again. Thank you so much for coming on. Good luck with the rest of the season. We'll all be keeping our fingers crossed that we get at least one team in the Champions Cup final.
Cheers, guys.
At Tottenham. And we'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Joining us now is England captain Marlie Packer, who is with us throughout the Women's Six Nations. Marlie, how are you? Looks like you're back training again somewhere.
We're back at Pennyhill Park this week. Obviously, a test match at Twickenham this week against Ireland. So, back in full training. We had Sunday off, which was nice. Spent the day with Oliver. So, it's a full week ahead now.
So, back to Twickenham this weekend. I will be there with my daughter Sophia, 6-year-old. First trip to Twickenham, going with my mate Rob and his daughter Grace. We can't wait. The girls are so excited about seeing the game. 44,500 tickets sold so far as well, so it's going to be a big crowd. How much are you looking forward to getting back to Twickenham and playing there, and what are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, we can't wait. It's the home of English rugby. It's our home, and we know we got 45,000 fans gonna be there. Hopefully we'll get more throughout this week, and it's just an experience for me. I've played there many times now, and the most amazing experience was playing that Six Nations decider against France last season. But for some of these girls, Maddie, this would be their first experience of it, and we want them to be able to really enjoy the experience. But then also for us, it's about making those 45,000 people that come up to watch enjoy the game and want to come back and want to watch us, and we need to make sure that we put on a spectacle for them.
Royal London are putting £3 million into helping the women's Lions team build the women's Lions team, and obviously the inaugural women's Lions tour is everything's building towards that in 2027, isn't it? I just wondered what you thought about that. I mean, obviously it's a massive boost for the women's game. Obviously there's so much of a groundswell behind the women's game, but it's worth saying, isn't it? Big, cutthroat companies wouldn't do it if they didn't see that growth in there. These are business decisions which only further strengthens the impact of the women's game.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if you look at women's sport in general, what the Euros did to women's sport, but then also we've got a home World Cup in 2025. You're only seeing it up and massively up, and these big companies, they want to support it. They see the value. They don't just see the value in the sport, but they see the value in the person, and I think that's massive and something that it's nice to be a part of and to keep growing that.
Now, very related, we are looking at how we grow the game with our sponsor QBE Business Insurance. There's clearly at the moment, Marlie, a big issue with girls being disengaged from sporting activity. I read a report from London Sport last year that said that activity levels are actually lower now amongst teenagers than they were before the pandemic. During your own teenage years, did you face any barriers or challenges? And if so, how did you overcome them? And what did playing rugby as a teen give you in terms of your own mental, physical and emotional health?
I think for me, the biggest barrier in rugby was the fact that not enough clubs locally had women's and girls teams. So my mum would have to drive me an hour and a half to then go play for a team to just play on a Saturday or a Sunday. I think that was probably a massive barrier, because the fact that she was a single parent with me and my brother trying to ferry us around for different sports, actually, she did an amazing job at that. But then also I think, the things when you're at school and, sports isn't the cool thing to do anymore, and, the girls want to go out and do what the latest trend on TikTok is and stuff like that. But I think for me, it was staying true to myself, that what I got from rugby, and rugby gave me so much. It always brought me back to, I always say, like, if you look at the road and then you've got shoots off of it, and, you know, rugby always brought me back to that main road of where I want to be. And I'm sat here now with 102 caps, and I feel very, very honoured, but lucky that rugby was there for me, because I don't know where I'd be now, but it definitely wouldn't have travelled the world playing 15s and 7s, been to 3 World Cups, learning about how to win one and be on a massive high, to then losing two, and it really, really hitting you. So I think, you know, sport can give you so much, and the people you meet along the way, not just colleagues, not just people you play with, but they become your best friends, you know, your mates that, you don't want to just talk about rugby with, you want to talk about life with, and go on holidays with, and have a good time.
That's all for this week. Our thanks to Will Collier, Marley Packer, and also to Foxpod Studios. Nick and I will be here again next week, so I hope you join us. Until then, thanks for listening, and goodbye.